Alright guys, alright, welcome guys to chapter 9. Today we're gonna discuss the money market and monetary policy. It is based on the book of Principle of Macroeconomics by Cyrus Horace and Guyat, 11 editions. This book is PPT is prepared by and owned, copyright by McGraw-Hill, 2022. This is quite a long chapter one, so bear with me for a while. So we have about five number of objectives on these chapters. Describe the terms of money demand and supply and explain how equilibrium in the money market is achieved. That's number one. Define the monetary policy. Explain the two main monetary targets. Number three, explain how the money transmission process work in affecting expansionary and contractionary policy. Explain the monetary belief in that controlling the money supply is vital, and explain the difference between how the opposing school thought with the monetary policy works. I think we have an additional two objectives here, so total will be 7 in this chapter. In this particular chapter, explain what anti-inflation policy is and how it works. This is what's going on is the current Canada market condition in 2023 2024. That what's the government doing it now. This is very important part of your learning process and list of the recent criticism of anti-inflationary monetary policy. All right, let's dive in. The money market. The money market. What are the money market? We're gonna use supply and demand, which is interest rate, the annual rate which the payment is made of, the use of money such as borrowed fund and the percentage of the borrowed fund, and the price of money. That is the interest rate that we are discussing. Okay. And in terms of supply of money, the supply of money is driven by the Bank of Canada. This is MS, which is the supply of money. In the y-axis, you have the rate of interest. The y-axis is the quantity of money. MS is the supply of money is the constant at any point in time and not affected by the rate interest, which is the money supply here. Excuse me. What is the Bank of Canada? Canada Central Bank. It is government institutions. Directors government are appointed by the federal cabinet. The current government is Steve McCallum since June 2020. Okay, this is the Bank of Canada. Okay, we are on this particular book. We're going to focus in Canada economy. The function of Bank of Canada is that a sole issuer of a currency. It is government banks and manager of foreign currency reserve on behalf of the government. It is the bankers' bank and lenders of the last resort. It is an auditor and inspector of commercial banks and regulator of the money supplies. And then Bank of Canada balance sheet as of 2021, you're going to have cash and foreign deposits here, short-term loan banks here, treasury bills, government bonds, and other assets. And then you have notes in circulation, government account, deposit bank, other liability. There are two types of demand for money. Transaction for money is the desire to hold money as a medium that is a factor in transactions. And the demand based on the level of real GDP prices in order to the interest rate. Okay, there's two types of that. The demand for money, the desire to use the money as a store of wealth, that is hold, and money as an asset, and inverse related to the interest rate. So in terms of the demand of money, we're going to look at the logic. Okay? Transaction demand is unrelated to the rate of interest, which is MD1 is the hour base. Your y-axis interest rate, your x-axis is quantity of money. If it is going higher, it's going to do MD2. If it is contractionary, it's going to do MD3. Okay, lower price of real GDP is going to do MD3. If it is higher degree, MD2. This is transaction demand. In terms of asset demand, there's an inverse relationship between asset demand and the rate of interest rate. Inverse relationship. There you go. R1 here, quantity 1, R2 here, quantity 2. Inverse relationship. Okay, MD2. MDA. Okay, that's called MDA. All right, we're going to have the transaction in demand. This is the MDT. This is the MDA and the total money demand in terms of the graphic sign. A, B, C. Two different graphics. Okay, transaction asset and total demand for money. Transaction demand is the MDT. Asset demand is the MD, which is B graph, and C is the total demand, which is the MD from 12 here. So you see the difference there. Then we got total demand of money from MDA to MD, or MD to MDA. See, look at here. MD is equal to MDT plus MDA. Okay, MDT plus MDA, then you get the MD. Total demand, money is the sum of the transaction of demand plus asset of demand. This is the MD here, which is MDT here plus MDA. Okay, right, that's the go. In summary, the demand for money is determined by the level of transaction of GDP and the average value of transaction, which is the price level, and as well as the rate of interest. Okay, in terms of the equilibrium, we're gonna look at this money supply here, money demand. The equilibrium will be called the R1. There is a no surplus or shortage of money. This is the equilibrium of in the money market. So then there's a shortage will be here, surplus will be in the R3 side. The shortage will be R2. At any given interest rate, there is no surplus of the shortage of money. So this is the one there's no shortage or surplus. But when this go to R2, there's a shortage. When you go to R3, there's a surplus. Excuse me. Alright, test your understanding. Assume the demand for economy is shown below, MDA. If the nominal GDP 800, transaction demand is 10% of GDP to the total demand. So how are you going to do that? Look at the logic here. The next one is going to be like this. Okay. Remember, this is the MDA. Let's go back. Okay. This is the MDA. This is your beginner, your exit point. This MDA is going to go to MD. Asset as demand for economy below. Nominal GDP is 800. National demand is 10%. This is 10%. Normally draw the total demand. Draw the total demand. This is total demand, which is transaction asset demand plus transaction demand, which is this one. Okay, so you got 10% times 800, which is 80. Okay, so you got 100 here, become 180. Okay, so that is the calculation. So total demand is asset demand, which is here 100. Once you calculate 10% here, how you got the 80 from? 10% is coming from here, 800 coming from here. So you got the 80 here. So you just add 80 here. So you got 180. Okay, this is your transaction demand there, right? Okay, 10%, this is the rate. Okay, all right, let's go into the detail here. The total demand is this one, as I mentioned to you. This is your money supply. Okay. That's how you're gonna go. The minus always is fixed at 150. Okay, you're gonna go back again to how to calculate there. 10% times 800, which is 80. You just add it up here. 100 to plus 80, which is 180. Okay, so then you get back here. You're gonna get total demand. It's gonna be money supply is constant. Okay, look at the next level. Slide. Equilibrium interest rate is 8%. Where the money supply meet the total demand. Equivalent quantity of money is 150. Okay, this is the equilibrium. Okay, because where the demand and supply meet. Okay, and then this is your money supply. This is your demand. If the interest rate is 10%, if there is a shortage of surplus or money, by how much? Okay, let's look at the next one. There you go. There is a surplus of 10 bucks. Where do you get the surplus from? This is the one. Okay. 150 to 140. Yeah, there's a surplus there. This is your demand at 140, but there's a supply here at 150. That's a surplus of 10 bucks. Okay. All right, in terms of bond yield, let's discuss the bond yield. Bond is a loan for a set period of time issued by corporation, bank, and various level of government, have a set face value, pay a fixed rate of interest, coupon rate, and can be bought and sold in the market. Okay, what are the logic here? The bond, return on the bond depends on the coupon rate, profit and loss on its sales. Bond prices adjust to reflect return on a financial instrument with the risk. Okay, the higher the price, the lower the return. The rate of return, coupon plus minus interest rate price change times 100 divided by price paid for the bonds. So when you're gonna look at this example of bond yield here, you got a 1 year 5,000 bond with a 4% coupon rate, and you pay interest of 200, and I bought for If I bought for 4,700, the rate of return how much? 200 plus, remember this is the rate 700. So you got the 4%. 4 times 300, right? Plus 300 times 100 equal to 10.64%. This is if it is you are buying what for 4,700. Remember here, pay an interest of 200 with a coupon rate of 4%. Okay? If a 4,900, the rate of return will be 200 plus 100 divided by 4,900. The base is 4,900. If it is 5,100, okay, where you got the 300 coming from? Here is the difference between 5,000 to 4,700. This is the difference, okay? Where you got the 100 from? The difference between 5,000 to 4,900. This is the difference. 4,100 from it is minus. Why is minus? Because it's a premium, okay? You see the logic here? The pattern given to you, okay? 4,700 equal rate of return 200 plus 300, 300 which is the 5,000 minus 3,000 which is the additional one, you got 10.64. 4,900 200 plus 100 because you buy a discount, so you got additional here. You got 6.12%. It's 5,100 every return, means you got minus is 1.96 because you are buying it a premium. Okay, the higher the purchase price, the lower the yield. The lower the purchase price, the higher the yield. That's the logic. Okay, how the money market adjusts? The money market adjusts to surplus or shortage through bond yield. Assume that people can hold wealth as either money or bonds. Surplus money equal to people buy bonds. Shortage money, people sell bonds. Okay, that's the key part. And then how the money adjusts? Surplus people choose to buy bonds to reduce their liquidity and earn income. Bond prices rise and leading to a fall in the bond yield and interest rate. Rates fall if there's no more supplies. Okay. Excuse me. Shortage is money, where people sell bonds in order to increase their liquidity. Bond price fell, leading to increase in bond yield and interest rate. So there's an inverse relationship between bond prices. Okay, when the interest rate going up, the bond price going down. When the bond price interest going down, the bond price going up. Okay, inverse relationship. Rates increase until there's no more shortage. Okay, look at the next one chapter here. Increase in interest rate caused by increase in the demand. This is demand 1 to demand 2. Yeah, okay. This is increases in demand. This is a decrease in supply from S1 to S2. Okay. Well, look at the logic here. Demand 1, demand graph A here show the increase in demand from D1 to D2 cause the interest rate to rise. Interest rate going up. Because that increases demand, interest rate goes up. Okay. Graph B here show the decrease in supply from S1 to S2. Okay. Cause the rate interest to increase from R1 to R2. Okay, that's the logic here. Decrease in supply. Okay, interest rates go up because of the two reasons. Increase in the interest rate caused by the rise for the demand for money and fall of the money supply, and decrease in interest caused by the fall in demand for money and the rise in the supply of money. Okay, then if supply of money is 150, find the equilibrium interest rate. So you're gonna find equilibrium interest rate. You plug in this 12 to 6%, asset demand 50 times asset demand 30. So you're gonna add all of them up here. You get a total demand, asset demand, transaction demand. Remember, total demand is this plus this. Okay, asset demand plus transaction demand. So you get the number. When you plug in the number, the 8% demand equal to 150. This is the same one that I mentioned. Okay, then if it is 140, it's the same story. How are you gonna get that if it is 140? So you get this 140. Okay, all right, at 10% equal to 40. All right, so if interest is at 11%, MS is 150. What are the implications? Okay, at 11% demand is 135 with supply 150. There is a surplus 150 minus 135, which is 15. Okay, this is that's your understanding. If the interest is 11%, multiplied 150. So that's basically level 1 objective. Let's move on to level 2 objective, which is monetary policy. What is monetary policy? It is consists of management of the money supply interest rate by a country's central bank. It is aimed at certain macroeconomic objectives such as controlling inflation and achieving full employment and stimulation of the economic growth. Bank of Canada plays a major role in the monetary policy. That is the key part. To my targets, Bank of Canada will be money supply and interest rate. And Bank of Canada can target either the money supply or target interest rate, or not both. Okay. And then, in terms of targeting money supply, the expansion of money supply, a policy that aims to increase the amount of money in the economy and the market cheaper and more easily available is also called easy money. Okay. When it's an expansionary, there's a lot of easy money because they are expanding and credit is easily available. And during this is during booming time. Okay. Contracting monetary policy, a policy is where the money is decreased and credit become harder and more expensive to obtain. This is called the tight money policy. Okay, there's one expansionary, one is tight. So this tight is the crunching. Okay, So, to Bank of Canada, change of money. There is what we call it open market operation, OMO, buying or selling treasury bill by BOC in the market that is open to anyone. OMO, which is its open market operation, can be initiated by at a short notice and are impactful and can be done by any amount. Okay, look at the open market operation here. T-bill, private corporation, Bank of Canada buying T-bill from corporation pays. Okay, number 2, check is deposited. Okay, all the way Bank of Canada here. Number 3, check is payment here from commercial bank. 2, 3, and then increase reserve. Number 4, number 5, increase reserve out, and then 6, money supply increases. That's how the market operation works. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. These are the steps. Okay. All right. 2 tools Bank of Canada use to change increase money supply by switching government deposit and transfer deposit from BOC to commercial bank. It is mostly popular. This is the most popular one. Okay. Following understanding, let's test this one. Show the effect of bank buys 2 billion worth of security directly from commercial bank. If the buy, what happens is commercial bank, okay, 800, okay, 800 here, total is 80, total assets is 80, no is equal to 65, 10 is 5 is 80, okay. So let's look at, this is the existing condition, okay. So look at the logic, 2 billion, okay, this is 2 billion, okay. When 2 billion, this is the existing before any operation. So when there is an operation, you're gonna add like this, plus 2, minus 2 from commercial bank, T-bills, asset is plus 2, plus 2, okay. All right, that's how it goes. So when it's done after 2 billion, that's gonna be 12,118. This is 82, 82, 12, 82. Okay, guys, go back again to the logic here, operation. Okay, 2 billion worth of securities directly from commercial bank. Your first step, the existing before the operation. After the operation, this is the impact, plus 2, plus 2. Okay, on commercial bank, Bank of Canada, you got a T-bill plus 2. Deposit banks plus 2. So the total will be a new one here. This is in blue. Okay. Okay, that's criticism for this. There are 2 reasons why Bank of Canada no longer target the money supply, because it does not directly affect the loan creation by commercial bank. You cannot know how uncertain the demand for money, and it cannot predict with certainty what the effect and the changes in the money supply will have. Okay. And then Bank of Canada made interest rate the major target affecting market because it has much more control over interest rate and does not over the money supply. Then it is easier for banks in communicating the policy to general public. That's the key part, target interest rate. Now the Bank of Canada set a target overnight interest rate at the midpoint, let's say 0.5 in operating banks. Okay? And then accommodate the supply of money to whatever quantity demand that might be at the interest rate. So this is the bank rate, this is the rate the bank pays to the Bank of Canada on loans. Target nominal rate is 2.5, which is 0.5 differences, because the offset will be 2.25. The rate of bank pays commercial bank on deposit. So this is the difference. Okay, 0.5. Bank rate, this is the one. Bankers deposit, this is the one. The difference is 0.5. Okay. Drop in the bank rate. A single expansion policy means the credit is more available and cheaper. An increase in bank rate means a signal construction policy means the credit is harder to obtain. Okay, in the monetary Objective number 3, monetary transmission process. What are the things? Transmission process, the way the change of money supply affect the real variable in the economy to interest rate, and the interest rate provide a link between the money supply and the product market. In the expansion, monetary policy implies increase in money supply and lower the interest rate, which lower the interest rate and leading to the increase in the investment and aggregate expansion and demand. This has a multiple impact on real GDP and higher price level. So what are the things? Expansionary policy here. This is an example, M1 to M2, expansionary policy. Okay, lower interest rate leads to investment and spending. Okay, A1 to E2. Okay, and then there's now the GDP. The increase in investment due to increase aggregate expenditure. Okay, increase in aggregate expenditure AD to the aggregate demand. Okay, that's the one. Step by step. M1 to M2 lead to lower interest rate going down. A lower interest rate lead to the increase in investment spending. There you go. And then number C, increase in investment. A1 to lead to an aggregate expenditure increase. Okay, from Y1 to Y2 investment here. Okay, and then real GDP, the increase in aggregate expenditure shift the aggregate demand into the right. There you go. Here to here. Okay. So expansion money policy, money supply increase, increases the price of money market change, purchase of bonds, bond price goes up. Transmit into the decrease in interest rate and the shift if aggregate demand to increase of the yield curve Y. Okay, and then this is a typical transmission monetary process. So increase of this percentage going down in terms of rate when there's and then GDP is going up. There's good news when everybody is spending good money. Okay, this is when you want to have the good country expanding. This is what Indonesia is done by doing a lot of expansionary monetary project through investment, increase money supply. Contraction money policy is the reverse, a decrease in money supply, which increase the interest rate, leading to the decrease in investment, and therefore expenditure and demand going down. The result of multiple impact on the GDP and lower price level. So it's the same kind of concept, but this one is going down, going to contract, because when you contract, you reduce. Okay, from M1, MS1 and money supply leads to interest rate higher because it's going down. Okay, there's a contraction is from quantity 1 to quantity 2, interest rate going to go up. Okay, and then higher interest rate lead to the lower investment spending. Investment spending going from here, right? From here, L1 to L2. Okay, and then it's going interest rate high from the in terms of aggregate expenditure, decrease in investment, A1 to A2 from here to here, basically decrease lead to an aggregate expenditure lower. So and then the fourth one, the decrease in aggregate shift from AD1 to AD2 to the left. So this because this is contractionary is the reverse. So anything that is a contractionary which is minus. Okay, that's number 3. The monetary policy view from the objective number 4 in monetarism. Modern school, economic school that taught believe that the critical fluctuation of GDP and inflation are actually caused by changes in the money supply, popularized by Milton Friedman. Okay, this is monetary view by Milton Friedman. Equation exchange, a formula that states the quantity of money times velocity of money is equal to the nominal GDP price level times real GDP. MV equal to PQ. MV is called money supply velocity of money times price level times quantity real GDP. Okay, what is velocity money? The number of times per year that the unit currency is spent buying final goods and services. Sometimes it's called the velocity of circulations. In terms of money's view, assume the velocity money V is constant and the economy is full of employment output and GDP Q cannot engage. So in changing it, we're going to be like this P equal to MV divided by Q. Therefore, markets believe that increase in money supply will lead to negative % increase in price level. Okay. All right. In M1 here, A 100, P is 2. Quantity will be found. What is the velocity of money? That's number one. Question number 2. Given the same parameters in A, if there's a constant and assuming economy is full employment, what will be the level of P? Increase to 220. So look at this logic. We're going to solve it step by step. For A, so basically 100 times, this is the equation, MV equal to PQ. 100 times V, you don't have that one because you are looking for the V. 2 is coming from here, quantity is for 500, so you got his 1000. 100 V equal to 10. Okay, that's questions number 1. Question number 2 is the same thing, MV equal to PQ, but V and Q are constant. Okay, V and Q are constant, so 120 times 10 equal to P equal to 100, so you got a P here, 2.5. So P is also up by 20%. Okay, that's number 4. Objective number 5, constructing Keynesian view and Monist view. In Keynesian view, people willing to hold cash and do not buy many bonds or interest rate changes very little. Business are not accepted. Interest rate changes, lower interest rate does not increase investment spending so much. Let me get a sip of water here. All right, so that's basically in the Keynesian view. In the Keynesian view, you're going to have this logic graphic. The demand for money is elastic, flat. The change of money supply only has small impact on the interest rate. Investment demand is inelastic, steep, so the interest change has little impact on the investment. That is MS1 to MS2. Quantity of money, this is the D demand, interest is going down for the A version. Okay, the A graph. Or the B graph is the same one. I'll show it to you from 20 interest rate going down and the investment going, because interest going down. It's going up from 25 to 30. This gets you. The demand for money is elastic, flat to change. So the change in money supply only has a small impact on interest rate. Investment demand is inelastic, steep, so the interest rate has little impact on the investment. That's the. Let me just go back here. And then the Monist view, if the money supply is increased, people are not willing to hold so much additional cash and buy bonds, so the interest rate changes a lot. Pieces are greatly affected. If the interest rate changes and lower interest rate will lead to a big increase in investment spending. The Monist view believe in using the money supply in stimulating economic growth while promoting full employment, ensuring a stable exchange rate, and fighting inflation that is usually overambitious and doomed to fail. They feel that the sole aim for monetary policy is to keep prices and exchange rate stable. So this is the Monist view, the demand for money. So the change in money supply has a big impact on market interest rate. In fact, the demand is likely. So there's a big difference. So the markets think that there's a big impact. So the Keynesian is small, the other one have a small impact. So this is proof that their point is different. Okay, it is going down, the money supply is going up, the demand stay the same here like that. Okay, so you got an increase here, 680. Same thing in the B, interest rate going down, the quantity is going to go up substantially from 25 to 65. So it's two opposite view. One says, Keynesian says small impact, monetary says big impact. Now, objective number 6, with the modern anti-inflation monetary policy, Bank of Canada approach to contribute the solid economic performance of rising living standard of Canadian by keeping inflation low, stable, and predictable. That's the key point. Okay, keeping inflation low, stable, and predictable to preserve internal and external value of currency, which means keeping inflation low between 1% to 3%, keeping exchange rate stable. So anti-inflation policy will be, what are the things? Tight monetary policy, cause high interest rate, cause lower investment, cause lower demand, cause low inflation. For higher interest rates, cause increased demand for dollar, cause higher exchange rate, cause lower export. This is the cost. This is anti-inflationary policy. Okay, guys, that's the logic what's coming from. In terms of criticism of economic policy, Bank of Canada concerned about controlling inflation, resigning lower economic growth, high employment, and big budget deficit due high interest. So this is the anti-inflationary monetary conditions. So basically, that this chapter we covered so far about 7 objective from 1 to 7. Okay, I'm going to go over again one by one. Determine the money demand, supply, and equilibrium in the money market for number 1. Number 2, monetary policy and 2 main monetary targets. Number 3, how money transmission process work in affecting and inflationary policy on contracting monetary policy. Okay. Number 4, why we believe that what control the money supply is vital. Number 5, the difference between how the two opposing school of thought believe the money supply policy works. What is number 6? What is the policy and how it works? And lastly, number 7, contradictions of inflationary monetary policy. Okay, so that's basically covered the chapter 9. Hopefully, it's gonna post it in YouTube as well as Edpuzzle so you can use it. So that's basically conclude chapter 9. Thank you.